Good evening, students. This is Mr. Metcalf. I will do my best to get through this. I am sorry I'm gone this week and probably next week as well. I had a little bit of an injury this last weekend as I was hit in my face with a line drive for my son while we were having some batting practice. So I've got fractures all over my face and I have to have some surgery. But I am somewhat prepared. I'm going to go over the answers for Module 13 and 14 and introduce the next assignment to you guys, which you guys are free to email me about if you have questions. Please be good for the subs. Please be thorough in your reading and the answers of the questions. This week it'll just be questions that you have to answer. And then next week I'll introduce to you guys a project that I'm going to have you guys work on while I'm gone. So let's get going here. I'm going to make it brief because it's very painful to talk. If anybody would like to see a picture of what it looks like, you can ask one of the Trail Run Club members. It's on Snapchat. They've got plenty of pictures. Or you can even ask Mr. Vanderpool. He has pictures of what it looked like. I will warn you, though, it is brutal. Okay, so this is Unit 3, Module 13, questions on Genghis and the Mongols. So the first question was, why do you think Genghis Khan wanted to unite the nomadic tribes and conquer nearby lands when his ancestors had lived as nomads for centuries? Real quick caveat. Please add to your questions. If you add something that you didn't add before, please do it in a different color or highlight it or something. Okay. Why do you think Genghis Khan wanted to unite the nomadic tribes and conquer nearby lands when his ancestors had lived as nomads for centuries? So, this is what I said. If we look throughout history, great empires have been created and strengthened when they unify from many different parts to one whole. From the Greeks to the Persians to the Hittites, Babylon, etc. So we can go back as far as Babylon when Hammurabi united all those different groups of people in that area. He created the first strong empire. The Hittites, when they went from being city-states to being united, he created one strong empire that was able to conquer a lot of territory. The Persians, there were different groups of Persians, and they united together under Cyrus, for instance, and became a great empire. The Greeks, when they united, when it wasn't just a bunch of different city-states, again, they became one strong empire. Okay, so there's lots of example. Okay, one of the reasons power is a reason. Visions of grandeur, like you've got this vision of taking over the whole world or just large territories or whatever. And then even making a better life for all your people. Okay, so I think that those things, definitely power for Genghis Khan, definitely visions of grandeur, but also I think he wanted to make life better for his people. Okay, and conquering territory and gaining riches that way was one way to do that. Number 2, which of Genghis Khan's military tactics, the decimal system, the Nerj, the War Academy, etc., were the most important to the Mongol success, and why? So I think if you look at all 3 of them, they interact together to make him super successful. Because it's important to train in order to know the skills on the battlefield. But while you're training, you have to understand the organization of your military and how it works together, right? Kind of like being on a soccer team or a basketball team. It's important to know the different positions and groups within, so you know where everybody's positioned on the field or the court or even the football field. Okay, it's important to understand that so that you can be a better whole, a better group, right? So if there's no organization, then everyone stands alone and you may last for a bit, but you're not going to win out in the end. right? Some of the greatest basketball teams throughout history have had great people that have worked together to win, right? Michael Jordan didn't win championships by himself, for instance. LeBron James couldn't win by himself. Gosh darn, I can't think of his name at the moment, but that Golden State Warrior point guard, I think he was point guard, couldn't win by himself. They had to have great supporting roles and have great people around them, or even really good people around them that understood what their job was, what everybody else's role was on the team, right? History has shown us, I mean, look, okay, and this is an example. It may not be the most positive example, but look at Hitler and the way that he organized his military. Super successful until they ran into the winter in Russia. Okay? History has shown us that being unorganized will not win wars. Okay? So I think that you have to take all three of those things together in order to show his military success. And I can't just pick one. However, if you could pick one, that's just fine. That's just how I happen to see it. Okay, put yourself in the shoes of Genghis Khan towards the end of his life. What would you do to ensure the continued success of your empire? That's the first question. And then what would you have done, or would you have done anything differently? So to answer the first question, I said, I would make sure that the leaders I had in place were loyal to the ideas I had created, the vision for a stronger, better Mongol nation, and of course, conquest. I would ensure that I had a successor that they valued and respected, and that also was able to bend and change with the times and events happening around them. As for the second part of the question, I think I answered it with the first part. It's important to leave someone in charge whom you trust, but it should not be a relative, or it should not just be a relative, but someone who can change. I like the concept that most major empires had of letting other people they conquered live their way. Eventually, once the conquest was finished, I think it would be important to develop more of a democratic type of system, not just, an emperor or whatever, or a king. Okay, they covered a large and diverse territory with too many different cultures not to do something this way, to give people more of a voice. Number 4, were the Mongol conquests more good or bad for the world? Why? They were brutal. There's no doubting that. And I know a lot of people, when they were drawing their pictures, said that Genghis Khan was misogynistic and he was evil and he was bad, and there's no excuse for the things that he did. We do have to remember the cultural times. That doesn't make it right, but you have to put yourself in their shoes during their time and the things that were going on. Okay? Again, that doesn't make it right, but we can't just look at things from our perspective. We have to put ourselves in their shoes back then in that culture. Okay, otherwise, all we do is look down our noses at them rather than trying to understand why they were who they were. So, were they good or bad? I said I believe that they were more for the good. They put a whole lot of infrastructure in place, kept the main trading routes safe, protected, which allowed for the trade of culture, science, tech, religion, all sorts of things in the advanced world. They put their faith and trust for administration purposes in the government in the hands of all different kinds of diverse people, okay, which is going to help them to create a better government. It's going to help them to have more diverse ideas and overcome certain things. So I believe overall that they were good, because I think they had a lot of influence on the world in a positive way. 5, how are the Mongols different from other great empires and societies we have studied? They were brutal, but they were very intelligent. They sought to control through violence. However, they let up when the territory had, I said kowtowed to them, but when it had bowed to them, when they had conquered it. Okay? How is that different? I think it's different in some of the emphasis they put on trade. I think it's different in the fact that in their government and administrative systems, they didn't just have Mongol people in place. They had all sorts of different people from different religions, from different from different cultures. So I think that's, putting a lot of faith and trust in people that you conquered, and sometimes conquered very brutally. So I think that covers the first part of the Mongols. Very brutal people, but they did a lot of good things at the same time. Does it excuse it? No, of course not. But it's worth being mentioned. So as for the Golden Horde, okay, that was Module 14. Let's take a look at these. The Golden Horde comes after Genghis, okay? So why do you think, let me take a drink here. Why do you think the Golden Horde did not extend into Western Europe? Well, part of it has to do with returning home for the death of Ogedai Khan. It's possible that by the time they were ready to resume anything further, any more conquest, that it was decided that they had enough land to take care of, and they were satisfied with that at the moment. So they set about strengthening what they already had, creating a better government, creating good, solid trade, creating good relations between other people, right? Back then, things take a lot of time. Traveling back and forth could have taken months. By the time you get back, things have calmed down. People have been strengthened. It may just not be worth. It may not be worth their time and effort anymore at that point. Okay, number 2. Why did the Golden Horde establish, settlements and a national religion instead of sticking to Mongol traditions? What were the advantages to these decisions? This is it goes back to the Kievan Rus and Constantinople and groups like that, right? I believe that they recognized the value of strengthening what they already had, which included picking a national religion. I believe that they possibly had seen examples in history and around them of the unity it created and the achievements that were created when empires unified under one religion. The Byzantines being a good example, the Kievan Rus being another example. Both groups were very successful for long periods of time because they unified under a specific religion. Number 3. How is the spice trade? So we're moving on to the trade, right? There's the Silk Road, which we talked about earlier. Now there's the spice trade, okay? And the biggest difference is that the Silk Road is land-based and the spice trade is more water routes, okay? One way in which the spice trade differed from the Silk Road was the sense of mystery and novelty following the spices, which also helped develop an interest in the new spices being distributed. I'd venture to say that the similarities are improved cultural sharing of technologies, goods, services, plagues, religions. Communication also becomes somewhat better and quicker because of the protection on the road, the Silk Road by the Mongols, and the water routes became a lot quicker, especially when they figured out the monsoon winds and things like that going through the Indian Ocean. What long-lasting effects did these trade routes have on the development of some societies? I said, see previous answer. Although you could add exploration to this as people begin to venture further, find more goods, they get more money and more power, right? If you do a little deeper digging, there's a lot of merchants who become super powerful and increasingly influential in the lives, and they really control government in a lot of ways, especially along the port towns in India and Africa. Okay, so I think that once you dig deeper, you'd see that. But and actually, if you go through some of the crash courses on the Indian Ocean trade routes, you'll see that they talk a lot about that a little more in depth. All right, number 5. What could the Mongols have done differently to prevent the downfall of the Yuan dynasty? So there are a number of things that caused the downfall of the Yuan, from economic weaknesses to natural disasters. The size here's to start with. The size and scope of the public works projects that they took on may have been a bit too much for them financially, especially when they're dealing with natural disasters, right? So if you think about the Grand Canal and some of the dams and things like that, the roads, all that stuff that they're building, they put so much money into infrastructure. They're having to heavily tax people, right? That's going to be too much for them financially. They can't handle that, okay? And you got natural disasters going on at the same time, which is also, they're going to put money into that to help take care of those natural disasters after they've happened. Well, so if you think about that, right, and take that all the way back to the mandate of heaven that we talked about last semester, okay, when things are going good, the emperor and the dynasty, they have the mandate of heaven. The gods are saying, yeah, we want these people in control, okay? When that's lost, okay, the empire falls apart, right? You get people start blaming the people in charge, saying, hey, you're no longer in favor of the gods, and you got people popping up that are like, well, we're going to take over now, and civil war, and then so on and so forth, right? So I'm not really sure what could have been done differently. Maybe scaling back on the public works projects or starting smaller to begin with, not undertaking so massive of projects all at the same time would have helped, right? Ensuring that the population was taken care of first, and somehow people were satisfied. And I'm sure there's other things too, but and if you guys were discussing it in class, I know you guys would come up with them. All right. Number 6, this is the first time China has been ruled by a foreign power after thousands of years of self-rule. How was the Yuan dynasty different from previous Chinese dynasties? I think the biggest thing here was that they tried to keep Chinese traditions in order to keep a good working relationship with the people. So the Chinese dynasties, the Mongols, all very important for the things that they did. And other groups of people throughout history going forward are going to use some of those examples to make themselves even better. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and let me know. Again, if you're adding to your document, please do so in color, of a different color of some sort. Also, your drawings that are due, please take a picture of them and you can email them to me or whatever. I'm not going to be able to, I can't look at the computer very long. It kills my eyes, and it's hard for me to see, but I will do my best. So please take a picture of those, either email them to me or attach them to Classroom. All right, thanks guys.